Joined now by our Canucks reporter, Jeff Paterson, one half of the Rink Wide duo with Andrew Wadden, and they'll be recording as well this evening. And Jeff, I want to take you back a year ago. We were lamenting. Look, everybody agreed that Jonathan Lekkerimäki was pretty good value where they got him at 15th overall and one of the best, if not the best goal scorer amongst that draft class of prospect. But I can remember that you and I lamented, here's another opportunity that has come and gone without the addition of a right-shot defenseman. Jeff, they got a right-shot defenseman at number 11 in Tom Willander.
And I think they got the guy that they wanted ultimately. And, for years we're going to look and see Zach Benson, the Chilliwack kid, goes 2 picks after him. So there was that strong link there. But Benson's a winger, and it's hard to deny the 98 points that he put up in 60 games. But this organization just bereft of defensive prospects, and they haven't used a first-rounder on a defenseman since Quinn Hughes back in 2018. We know how thin the pipeline is. And it just felt to me that the Canucks were locked on to Tom Willander here. They took him out to dinner at the Combine in Buffalo, and I don't know that sealed it necessarily, but when that word got out, it just felt like he checked so many boxes. He's been a huge riser in the second half of the season. Well-rounded, smart, polished. Saw the quick interview stage side there. He talked about how he was driven. He wants to be a change maker. Love that. The Canucks need a lot of those, quite frankly. And so not the least bit surprised that they wound up with a defenseman, but things certainly got interesting the way that the draft shaped up in the first 10, the couple of reaches and a couple of surprises, obviously. So they had options, but through it all, I think they had their eyes on their prize, and that was Tom Willander.
I mean, everybody always wants offense at the draft, but the truth of the matter is the Canucks have their offensive defenseman. At least they hope they have. There's still, he might be a Quinn Hughes extension away from joining the lineup, Tom Willander. But presuming the Canucks get Hughes extended in time for the two of them to play on the same team, Willander and Hughes, I mean, somebody needs to play on power play too, or just be the minute cruncher that doesn't necessarily play on the power play, and that could be Tom Willander. So, do you care that he's not necessarily electric offensively, like in terms of actual counting stats?
I don't. I mean, I know that at the top end, he's been compared to a Charlie McAvoy who, has put up point totals sort of in the high 50s in Boston. I saw Rasmus Andersson was another name that he had been compared to. Boy, the Canucks would take either of those types of players and plug them into the lineup. They've got Philip Hronek, who's 25. He's going to be manning the right side as well. I mean, it's possible that Tom Willander someday could be the partner for Quinn Hughes. And so you're right. It's more about bringing a well-rounded game, taking care of your business and letting Quinn Hughes and helping Quinn Hughes reach greater heights if that's even possible. Now, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I like the fact that he's coming over and he's going to play in North America, committed to Boston U, so he's going to get the NCAA experience, North American ice, and maybe a year away, maybe 2. We'll see about that. But no, they didn't need a massive point producer here. They need a guy that can help out in all areas of the game, and that's when I see the scouting reports that I've read on this player. People like his skating. They really like his decision-making. I saw somebody compare him to a Dan Hamhuis type of player, in as much as he's not going to blow you away. You come, you buy a ticket, he's not going to be the best player on the ice, but he's a guy that absolutely can help in all situations. And certainly Dan Hamhuis, it wasn't about the flash for him ever. It was just being solid every single night. And so just to drive the comparisons a little closer to home, boy, if the Canucks could replicate what they had in Dan Hamhuis and Tom Willander, I think they'd be pretty happy if he pans out that way.
And Dan had a very low floor, too. Like, there weren't many bad nights for Dan Hamhuis, and you wonder if Willander will be that kind of guy.
Well, hey, I mean, first of all, the Hamhuis comparison is most apropos from a draft floor in Nashville, right? The connection between the Nashville and Vancouver with Dan Hamhuis.
Did I say low floor? He has a high floor.
High floor, yes. High floor.
Yes, high consistency level.
Yes. Secondly, if he turns into Charlie McAvoy, this is an absolute home run. If he turns into Rasmus Andersson, that's a very useful player. And I will remind everyone, Rasmus Andersson taken with the Canucks second.
Yes, right.
Parted with for Sven Berchi in Calgary after all those years. Blake, I mean, he was under contract till 27. I would suspect this guy plays before then. And if not, maybe you're a little bit worried. And I thought I heard a big cheer from the North Shore. I don't think it was Jeff Paterson. I think it might have been our old friend Dave Tomlinson. If the Canucks are taking a Boston, Boston, Jeff, they need penalty killers. Like, he could be their primary penalty killer coming down the pipe here.
Well, they need penalty killers starting in September, and he's not going to be that guy. But yes, they will always need penalty killers, certainly. And so, yeah, I mean, look, Quinn Hughes has the run of the place. As long as he's here, he is their 25 to 30-minute guy. We know he runs the power play, and they use him on the penalty kill as well, but maybe you offset his penalty kill usage a little bit by the time Tom Willander arrives on the scene. Whatever the case, again, this is a guy that's projected and taken 11th overall. He better be a top 4 defenseman for this organization. Again, Hughes and Hronek look like they're going to be here for the foreseeable future, so that's why I say he could very well be a partner at some point for Quinn Hughes, because if he's not, it means he's playing behind Philip Hronek, and I don't think the plan right now is to have Hronek and Hughes play together an awful lot. I think they're going to try to spread whatever, I can't use the word wealth they have on the blue line, but the depth that they have on the back end. So, again, I like this pick. We always go through the discussion about best player available. I know you guys had that debate. I think this might have been the best player available at the position of greatest need for the Vancouver Canucks. And this year, that's the path they elected to go down. A Swedish general manager, a Swedish scout in Thomas Brodin, who has been delivering Swedes for years for the Vancouver Canucks, decades. They went to Sweden last year with Hronek, as you mentioned. And so, again, there were just so many things that sort of lined up when you step back and look at what the Canucks might do. Again, they had to wait and see how the dominoes fell, and a few of them did fall in some strange ways in front of them, but through it all, Willander was there, and they made that pick when they got to the podium.
And we had started seeing from a bunch of our listeners as we were debating best player available or best center or defense available, people writing in with things like, how about MVP available, most valuable player available, understanding the extreme need of this franchise for centermen and for defensemen, and understanding the scarcity of right shot defensemen, which this guy is, and of course right-handed centermen. Jeff, do you think this selection changes their plans, be it via trade or free agency, to go on out and get that right shot top 4 defenseman? Could you see them erring more on the left-hand side? Because as you mentioned, this kid's still a couple of years away, and they do need a top 4 immediately. But could you see them flipping over and prioritizing the left side guys after the Willander selection?
Cheaper market.
Well, and yeah, once they bought out OEL, absolutely, that created another gap on the blue line. So yes, I think that's where they will spend whatever money that they've got here when the window to free agency opens on Saturday. I would anticipate. I know that they've been linked to Ian Cole, Carson Soucy, another name out there. Both of those guys, some size, a little bit of grit, and certainly both have done some penalty killing, and, that's going to fill an immediate need for the Vancouver Canucks. So, yeah, I think today's first pick, you're looking maybe a year. I mean, maybe it's only 1 year at Boston University if all goes well and he acclimates well to North America. But even at that, I mean, we're talking about an 18-year-old, 6'1", 180 right now, but he's a teenager. He'll fill out, and hopefully he can bulk up a little bit. Maybe a year in the minors. Maybe he makes the move right to the National Hockey League whenever he makes the jump. Whatever the case, yeah, I think that certainly the organizational needs that existed yesterday and before the first round, they still exist in terms of what Rick Tocchet's going to want to work with and what Rick Tocchet needs to work with to make his team better and to reach their stated goal of being a playoff team, or at least make a push for the playoffs. They're going to have to be busy, and they've cleared up a little bit of cap space now with the OEL buyout. So remarkable the way this all shakes down, with round 1 on a Wednesday, the rest of the rounds on Thursday, and then all these teams scrambling to get home to their war rooms to get right back at it on Saturday when free agency opens.
You can make the argument that a couple of teams at the very least drafted players that they could have got later. That allows the Canucks to avoid, I think, a lot of criticism that, hey, why'd you draft Willander there? Why didn't you trade down to Buffalo, to anybody, and draft him there where you might have been able to get him there? I mean, it just wasn't happening at the top of the draft, was it, Jeff? There was no movement up or down by anybody.
No, when Simashev went as early as he did, I mean, I think that caught some people in the hockey world off guard. And it was the back-to-back defenseman. Reinbacher obviously went ahead of him and a little earlier, I think, than some thought. But you knew at that point then that there were going to be options for the Canucks, but through it all, Willander remained there. I know that the Canucks did like Ryan Leonard. I mean, I think every team did. He went in the top 10. Interesting that Nate Danielson, who they were linked to as well, goes before Willander, so that took the pressure of that pick. And, Nate Danielson, look, I'll give guy every opportunity. Read glowing reports about him, but a little surprised that he cracked the top 10 based on some of the limitations that a lot in the scouting community sort of saw in his game as a game breaker. So Detroit figured that he was their guy, fair enough, but that took that option away from the Vancouver Canucks. And maybe it's good, too, that there was at least one pick of separation between the Canucks and Benson. If he had been the guy to go right after the Canucks had made that selection, I mean, the comparisons will always be there, the local kid. But, again, Arizona doing its own thing, as the Coyotes so often do, and kind of went off the board twice in the first 12 picks of this draft.
Yeah, and guys, I think two different ways to look at that conversation Patrick Allvin had with Buffalo Sabres general manager Kevin Adams after Simashev and Danielson went. Number one, that Simashev was their guy. It was a total wild card, good smoke screen. Number two, that Danielson would have been the guy over Willander, but also, and they were looking to move down. Or, hey, we know you like Benson. Are you willing to give us something to move up to this number 11 because they felt they could still get Willander?
Right, because Arizona wasn't going to get Willander.
Arizona wasn't going there
no.
after taking Simashev 6th overall.
Yeah. It was some clear conscience, I think, on behalf of the Vancouver Canucks. In terms of trades, Jeff, Saturday, I'm so used to this being Friday, Saturday. Does Thursday bring about the opportunity for some of that? Are you confident, or where are you on that going into day two?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised, just as a lot of the teams started to heat things up on the trade front, that the Canucks were not involved in the hours leading up to the draft. But we saw the JT Miller deal go down before the proceedings started on day two of the draft here in Vancouver back in 2019. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Canucks, it was imperative this year, after trading out of the first round the last couple of years, they had to have a first rounder. If they wanted to trade back, I guess I was open to seeing how that would have played out, but ultimately they needed a first round pick. They have secured that now. Now they have an accumulation of picks in rounds 3 and 4. Do they package some of those and try to move up a little higher without a second rounder? Do they trade back and try to, more lottery tickets in this? I would think that Patrick Allvin will make some sort of deal at some point. They've got 4 third-round or 3 fourth-round picks. That's a lot in any one round. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a deal to be made there one way or the other. And, yeah, I just think the fact that, he's been quiet. We know that that's the way Patrick Allvin seems to like to operate, is in that vacuum where you wonder what's going on with this front office. And so often they spring these moves, whether it was the JT Miller signing, whether it was the OEL buyout recently. I don't think we hear a lot of chatter. Patrick Allvin keeps the cards close to his vest. So I'm not sure that he's going to tip his hand as to his plans, but I'd be a little surprised, I think, now that they've got their first rounder in the bank, if they aren't active in some way on the trade front.
Jeff did it for the welcome mat today. It's a big list. Port Moody's Ryan Johansson, Ross Colton, Alex Newhook, the ex-BCHLer, Kevin Hayes, Gabe Velarde, Rasmus Kupari. All centers that have been traded. And then Jordan Stahl, Eric Halla, David Kampf, Sean Monahan, and today Ivan Barbashev also re-signed by their existing clubs. How concerned are you getting about the pool of available third-line centermen for these Vancouver Canucks, either via trade or on
Max
the free agent?
Tesson is so excited right now.
Because we know that's a big need, and in fact, Allvin identified it as their biggest need prior to the OEL buyout.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I just don't think they were ever going to be in the market for big money, big names in that third line center. I still think a guy like a Nick Bjugstad could possibly be of value to the Vancouver Canucks. Size and a little bit of penalty killing utility, and a decent year in Arizona before he was picked up by the Oilers at the trade deadline. I mean, that's a name that I'm looking at, but I don't know that they're locked into him. I still think when we talk about the trade route, the fact that the Canucks have some cap space, I think that they could take on a distressed asset from somebody else that's trying to clear out some cap space. So, yeah, I mean, you throw around some names, no question about it. Those ones come off the board, but there will be some players there, and I think it's up to the Canucks, and this is where the pro scouting has to really play a role. They did that with the Dakota Joshua last year. Can they find, an unpolished gem, perhaps, that they can find and either and this is more about free agency than it is a trade, but if they go the trade route, this is where your analytics department has to do its homework in lockstep with the pro scouting department and maybe find a guy that you think just needs an opportunity. So there'll be some players out there. They may not blow everybody out in the water with what they do here in free agency, but I do think that there'll be players to a small degree. The other thing, too, is, though, Matt, you now listed off some of that activity here of late. I mean, this Pacific Division with Pierre-Luc Dubois now in Los Angeles, the arms race down the middle is just insane with McDavid and Draisaitl, Eichel in Vegas, obviously. The fact that Los Angeles could pull off that deal and retain Quinton Byfield, and they still got Kopitar and Philip Deneau, and Anaheim's grooming some good young centers there. Seattle, obviously, with Matty Beniers, and then you got Elias Pettersson and JT Miller as the 1-2 punch here. Really, it's every single night in the division, and who knows what kind of lineup Calgary's going to ice, but just so many good pivots in the Pacific Division here starting next season.
It got maligned, this division, a little bit, didn't it, over the last couple of years? And I don't think it's going to get that reputation in the next year or two at the very least.
No, and Adleel Carlson, I guess, too, and that's where the surprises began, and we'll see if he steps right in. But I do think that... we've seen, like the Los Angeles Kings for years there, that was the Bermuda Triangle. You didn't want to go through California, and then they all kind of took a step back. The Kings have emerged, but boy, I like what the Ducks are doing there, and we'll see if Mike Greer and the San Jose Sharks can get their act together, because I don't think it'll be that long before teams are going to fear having to make that 3-game trip through the Golden State again.
There's always San Jose. There's always San Jose to beat up.
And guys, and Jeff, if I can just put this bee in your bonnet here, how good would a second first-round pick have looked for these Vancouver Canucks at number 17, where Axel Sandin Pellikka is the choice of the Detroit Red Wings? Of course, the Islanders' first-round pick acquired through Vancouver for Philip Hronek. Guys, Detroit stepped up to make that pick with Oliver Moore, Sandin Pellikka, the local kid Andrew Crystal, Colby Barlow, who the Canucks took out to dinner at the Combine, and some others, Gabe Perreault, and some others available. I think that Sandin Pellikka pick is also going to sort of resonate with Zach Benson as the years go by with this draft.
Well, the fascinating part to me, guys, is I still wonder, why were the Detroit Red Wings willing to part with Philip Hronek, a 25-year-old right-shot defenseman? I know they have Moritz Seider there, but they essentially peddle Philip Hronek to the Canucks, land this first-rounder, and use it to take another young right-shot defenseman. And so you would have thought that the Red Wings, sort of in that same boat as the Canucks, trying to work their way out of a funk and climb their way back into contention. And like Philip Hronek looked like he checked a lot of boxes, but they were willing to part with him, and they've sort of reloaded with another right-shot defenseman, obviously a few years younger. I want to give Hronek every opportunity. If this guy can play, he's going to help the Canucks. But I still, like where the Red Wings were in their competitive evolution, I do wonder why Philip Hronek was available and able to land the price.
Let's hope we never find out the answer. Let's hope we never find out.
I think part of the answer will come next summer when the Canucks have to negotiate an extension with Hronek. That was the word out of Detroit, that he was looking to cash in and wasn't going to budge much with regards to a team-friendly deal. Jeff, marvelous stuff. We'll let you get to Andrew and Rink Wide. If news happens tomorrow, we'll hear from you. Otherwise, on Friday, you're in for Blake here. Appreciate this.
All right, guys. Thanks.
This Sekeres and Price clip brought to you by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino games, sports odds, and poker strategies.